Hello there, everyone, and welcome back for a special offseason edition of Washington Football's unfiltered show, The Beat, where we bring together journalists, local and all far across the NFL, to break down the latest storylines and headlines for the Burgundy and Gold. A week away from the draft, it's been a busy offseason for Washington Football. So to kick things off and look at how it's gone in the months since the end of the season, we bring in a very talented panel, starting with John Keim of ESPN, covering the Washington Football Team beat, Fred Smoot, former Washington Football Team cornerback and famous mouth of the South, and Brian Mitchell, former Washington Football Team running back and kick returner, a Hall of Famer in our eyes, and new host of B. Mitch and Finley on 106.7 The Fan. It's a great show. You should go check it out. Guys, welcome back to The Beat. All of you have been on before, and now we get to look back at free agency to kick off this show. And it's been, I would say, an A performance. A lot of people have been in agreement with me. I'd love to see where you guys differ, but let's start with the big three. Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, William Jackson III at cornerback, and Curtis Samuel at wide receiver. John, I want to start with you. Who was the biggest signing of the big three this offseason?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me go first, because I got Fred Smoot and B. Mitch on here. I'm wondering, am I going to be able to get any words in? So I appreciate you letting me go first. So that's all great. The biggest sign, the best signing, I think, is William Jackson III. I mean, that guy is a terrific corner. And Ronald Darby did a nice job for them last year, but he takes that defense, I think, the secondary especially, to another level. I think Curtis Samuel was terrific because of the versatility. Fitzpatrick's an upgrade, but I think William Jackson is the guy that, to me, was the top signing, just because I think he's the best player of that group.
And I agree with John. I believe that that's the same thing. You know, I think when you look at the defense, in the front, they're stout. Then they need somebody in the linebacker. You lose a Darby, you need to get somebody to come in and fill that position. Jackson does that at a very high pace, and then you get Curtis Samuel, I think, follows. Those guys are here 3-4 years. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a one-year deal, so I can't say he was better than them. He's going to bring some excitement, but we don't know which Fitzpatrick or Magic we're going to get.
Well, you know what? You can treat your rental car good, too. Just because we know he's a rental don't mean we have to treat him, love him, and leave him, B. Mitch. And I am so shocked that John Keim, the lover of all offense, B. Mitch, the holy grail of playing every position on offense. I'm shocked that y'all chose offense. I'm going to go Curtis Samuels because I know this as a defensive player. While I'm sitting in the huddle, if you run out Curtis Samuel with any set, we don't know what the set that you're in. We don't know if you're going to play running back. We don't know if you're going to play slot. We don't know if you're going to be on the outside. So now our defensive count is always going to be off. Don't forget that Antonio Gibson, the number one back, also plays wide out. Do you know the things that you can do with an offense when you got multiple position guys out there? And that puts us in a bind.
See, the reason I don't go with Samuel is because they don't know what he can do just yet. Jackson, you know what he can do. He can go out there and follow guys. He can go out and he can be your guy, like you said. If you're not a lockdown corner, you say this many a time, then you know good. You had your guy here. You didn't like him. He's Josh Norman. He didn't follow people. Jackson can do that. So I would have to go with that guy. He's a much better athlete that you know what he can do. Curtis Samuel, they got to figure out some type of niche for him.
There's also a couple other guys that stand out. To me, one of them is Sammis Reyes, who is from Chile and has gotten this opportunity. His story is just fantastic, but there are a lot of other guys out there that stand out. B. Mitch, let's start with you. Reyes, maybe Darryl Roberts, David Mayo. Who stands out in that group?
Well, I think Reyes stands out because we've seen so many tight ends come, the guys that were playing basketball, and then all of a sudden now they get a chance in football, and they've had a lot of success at it. If the kid plays anything like he looks, he's going to be fantastic.
Yes.
He has the body style. He can run. He seems to be a guy who's learning this game, and he wants to do it. That's the main thing. A lot of basketball players don't want to get into this physical game. He wants to do it. He's been down there in Tulane, and learning the Southern way. I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, before moving on, though, Logan Thomas, the first person to reach out to him. That says volumes about Logan Thomas stepping into that leadership role for the offense.
And Sammy Reyes looks like Thor. He looks good getting off the bus. And when you talk to coaches love getting a clean slate. That means he don't have any bad habits. Only thing you got to do is build him up at practice. Like, practice is going to be everything for this guy. And his size, when you want to compare her to some guys, it has to be Jimmy Graham and Antonio Gates. All right, with one thing he has over him already, he's more physical at the point of attack. He's a better blocker already. That's going to get you on the field quick if you're a tight end. Now you got to realize he's going to be able to out-jump some guys, outrun some guys, and he's going to have the biggest catch radius we probably had at tight end in decades. Like I say, when I go to the steakhouse, I don't always order steak. Sometimes I order Chilean bass, and it goes just as well as the steak does.
Well, I know who's going to give his induction speech in Cooperstown in about 20 years. So here we go. I will say the one thing that Reyes highlights to me is, first of all, it's a thinner class at tight end. So you're looking for a guy that has some major upside, and this is one of them. And I think so, like, why not take a shot in a guy who's like this? He's going to be a lot better than anything you would have found in the late parts of this draft. And you look at the 5 tight ends in their roster, 4 of them either played a different sport, like Reyes, or a different position in college. So they like those guys who are really good athletes who can maybe transition to that position. So I think it kind of highlights some of that quest there. And I will go back to Humphries because they got him for a 1-year deal, and it's less than $2 million for this year. And I do think, like, the way he can work the middle of the field, the way he can work in conjunction with the tight ends, and then also with the receivers on the outside, I think he could be a key part. Not a flashy guy, not going to be dynamic, doesn't need to be if you have some of those guys, other guys around you, but he can be a very important guy. Like, the thing I would heard from people in Tennessee, if it's 3rd and 5, he's going to get you 5.0999 yards. He'll get what's necessary, but he knows how to operate within the confines of the offense.
Yeah, that chemistry with Ryan Fitzpatrick, though, the fact that he got a text from Fitzpatrick on the 3rd and 15 play where he tried to lateral it and said, let's do it again. That just says a lot about that relationship and how much fun this offense is going to have. But let's transition now into the NFL draft. The free agent signings have come in. Now there are still some positions of need for this Washington football team roster. And Fred, looking at it right now, it seems offensive line and linebacker are the top 2 needs. Is that where your eyes are, or is there another position that people aren't looking at Washington needs to address?
Well, luckily, I get to hang around Washington Park a little bit and kind of pick Coach brain a little bit. I think when you look at Coach, he has a history of going first round at linebacker. He likes to keep his linebackers fresh. He likes to keep them young. And he also likes tweeners. He don't like his guys to be just straight up linebackers. He like Thomas Davis, who used to play safety at Georgia. He like Shaq Thompson, who used to play safety at UCLA. He like an athlete at his second level that can get behind those 4 defensive linemen and let them keep the blockers off of them and run sideline to sideline. So I'm going to go Jeremiah Kimura. He has a middle name, Osu, that's in Notre Dame. I think he's the pick right there. And I think he's still going to be there because I always like to make realistic picks at the game. If I don't think the guy's going to be there, I'm not going to say it. So in a dreamland, we could get Micah Parsons from Penn State. In reality, I think we're going to Notre Dame for our first round pick.
So that's linebacker at the 19th pick. That's where Washington will be in the first round. John, what do you think here?
Well, I think because I was going to say Trevor Lawrence, but Fred said we can't just pick anybody, so I'm going to stay away from Trevor Lawrence on this one. So I think the 2 spots that I'm looking at in the first round are offensive tackle and then linebacker. And I think some of those linebackers fit. I was thinking, again, Micah Parsons. I think the key will be does he fall? And by fall, I mean bottom end of the top 10. And does he get beyond the top 10? That's when it gets interesting for him and this team, perhaps. But otherwise, I think Koromoa is really good because he can do a few things for you. I think an interesting thing there will be, how they want to use certain guys they already have on the roster, and does he add to that? But I am looking at a guy like Christian Darrisaw, the tackle from Virginia Tech, but I don't know if he's going to be there, and so that's part of my hesitation there. I do think, like Fred, I think Koromoa will be there. I think, to be honest, in that scenario, I'd see him trading back. But so right now, I'll just say a Darrisaw because I know they really would like to address that tackle position. I'm not convinced he'll be there, but if he is, I think he'd be the guy. I like Koromoa though. The guy can play and he can run.
I think when you look at this draft though, we're talking so much about the quarterback position, and I think if a lot of those guys go up and you start seeing other guys fall back, then they can be in a pickle. Maybe some of these top-notch wide receivers begin to drop closer to where Washington is picking. But for me, I still think they need to address the offensive line like they've done the defensive line. You look over the last 4 years, they were going first-round picks with the defensive line. You have to start getting the people. We can't keep bringing in all this talent now at the skill positions on offense and have nobody to block for you. So if you can go out there and get someone like a Darius or the kid from Oklahoma State, those guys, they may end up slipping to you. I think when you look at Michael Parsons, the little stuff keeps popping up, the off-field things. He can probably be right in your lap, but are you willing to do something like that? I see Ron trying to build a system here now and have a culture where I don't have to worry about people when they're away from the building. That may not be the guy that ends up here, although he's probably a very good athlete that would make your second level of your defense far better than what it's been.
This is the first draft of all time that we have a person that's not even from Earth participating in the draft. We have the first Martian by the name of Kyle Pitts at tight end who can
Goodness, that guy.
So if I'm talking about moving up, if I ask y'all guys, if you move up, if it's any one person that you would say, get into the tight end for, get into the top 10 for, I think it's Kyle Pitts. I think he's a Martian. I think we've never seen this before in the NFL, and I think he's going to be special. Check your social security.
But then you go to 4. I mean, you're not going to do that. I think ultimately, Atlanta is going to take Kyle Pitts. Beyond that. And I don't think we can move past them. So ultimately, I think anytime you see Washington move from 9, if they're going to move up, you move 19 maybe to an 8, 9, or 10, but you're not going all the way up. And I don't think Kyle Pitts will be anywhere close. He's going to go before some of these quarterbacks they're talking about.
We got to take a break, but we will continue our draft talk right after this with a little upvote, downvote on Washington football's future going into next season and beyond, here with John Keim, Fred Smoot, and Brian Mitchell. Keep it locked right here. You're watching The Beat.
When was the last time you experienced something different? Dig in to support Black-owned restaurants.
The landscape has changed, and not for the last time. The rules of business are being reinvented with a more flexible workforce, by embracing innovation, by looking not only at current opportunities, but ahead to future ones. Resilience is the ability to pivot again and again for whatever happens next.
People who know BDO.
The Beat is presented by Bud Light. Welcome back to The Beat. I'm your host, Chip Brierre, alongside John Keim of ESPN, Fred Smoot, former Washington football team cornerback, and Brian Mitchell, host of B. Mitch and Finley on 106.7 The Fan. Guys, we'll pick up our draft talk here. Moving on to past the first round. Washington the last 2 years has hit diamonds in the rough in the third round with Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. So, B. Mitch, can they continue to find value in the second and third round and going into the weekend?
I believe they can. I think when we look at this receiver core now, you still can add to that. And there are a lot of receivers that are going to be falling back. Those guys, it's a healthy position to be looking at this year. And I think they may still be able to find somebody second or third round that can still come in and help this football team. You get a few players now. You got Humphreys. You have our Curtis Samuels, but you still don't stop right there. There have been guys on this team over the last 2 to 3 years that we've been waiting for to take the step. If they're not taking a step, I would try some of these other kids that are in this draft that may be able to come in and play very well. We've seen young guys, receivers get into the league last year and take over. Maybe some of these guys can come in and help you out as well.
Yeah. When you talk about second round, if I get my linebacker in the first, now I'm looking for that offensive lineman in the second. Do we go back to the well at Alabama with Alex Leatherwood? You're talking about a guy that's huge. You're talking about a guy that wins at the point of attack. Do we go to Tennessee for a guy like Trey Smith? You can get him in the second, maybe in the third. Now, when we get in the third, I call that our magic land. All we do is find ballers in the third. Do not be shocked if we go quarterback. Do not be shocked if we go to Stanford for a guy like David Steele. Do you want to know who had the highest completion rate from the pocket this year? Not Trevor Lawrence, not Zach Wilson. It was one Davis. He was the guy that done it. And you talking about 6'5", 240 pounds, and can run. He ran a 4.5 40. I think he's that clean slate at quarterback. You say, you know what? Fitzpatrick's going to be here. I got Heineke on the roster. Let me work on this project also. So it's a lot of things you can reach for. And if you want to go tall wide receiver, Terrence Marshall from LSU. He's a guy that blazed the 40. He's 6'3". He's one of the bigger guys in this draft. I don't think he get past Baltimore, though. I just think he's one of their favorites. But it's going to be tons of athletes. And a guy like Anthony Schwartz, Aubrey, he had speed to burn. He's not going in the first 2 days. He's a guy that I think he's going to rise. They got him like the 4th, 5th round. I think he will be a 3rd rounder. So this draft is filled with talent. You want to get a lot of late round draft picks in this draft.
Yeah, and I think going back to the quarterbacks too, I think Davis Mills is definitely a guy to watch for them on day 2. Now the question will be, you hear a lot of different things with him. He only started 11 games, had some knee injuries early in his career. So there's some mystery with him, but he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he turned down Alabama. It's not like this guy came out of nowhere. This is what people expected of him when he went to school. The question will be, will he go in the 2nd or the 3rd? And I think Florida's Kyle Trask is another to watch there as well.
I'm on the job. Martin Mayhew discussed it. We don't know a guy that played only that few games will get the attention.
We got guys that's going in the top 10 from North Dakota State that played 10 games and didn't even play this year. You know, it used to be that thing where
picking for them. That's Mayhew picking here.
And I understand that, but come on, Matt Jones is slotted to go number 3, and he started this year, and this year only. We have a couple of quarterbacks in this draft that only have 1 year of work to their name, and they know these people. And then that's why I can't understand why people say the most game-ready person is Matt Jones. How is that even possible when Trevor Lawrence has played 3 years of a career, when Justin Fields has went over here and played as many games as anybody else? I just don't get people sometimes.
The hot takes are coming in fast here, Fred Smoot. My goodness. Let's transition then into upvote, downvote, where we get your pulse on the latest topics for the Washington football team and the NFL. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones. Well, let's go further there. There will be more than 5 quarterbacks selected in the 1st round, Fred Smoot. You going to upvote that or downvote that?
I'm going up. It has a chance to be 5 to 6 guys in the first 45 to 50 picks. But we all know the humbling truth. Out of those 4 or 5, it won't be but 2 that's good and 1 that's a maybe. We know that for a fact.
That's what history tells us. Let's go on to the next one. Washington will not trade their 1st round pick. B. Mitch, upvote or downvote?
I will go with an upvote at this point, but I just think that depending on what happens in the draft may make them have to do something. But I think at this point they think they can do what they need to do at that position. They're not planning on doing it, but that's not something set in stone.
John Keim, Washington will have added 2 to 3 wins as a result of their free agent moves and draft choices this season. Upvote or downvote?
I'll say, I think because they've improved their quarterback, they improved their receiver with Curtis Samuel, and so far they've improved their defense with William Jackson III. And I think what they do in these first couple rounds can further improve them. So, the hard part is the NFC East, I think, will be tougher if Dak Prescott stays healthy. The Giants are building as well. And the schedule is a little bit tougher. So it may be hard, but to get on a 17-game schedule, I think 9 to 10 wins is not unrealistic based on what they've added, based on they were finishing strong. So, again, I think they've improved in several areas. So sure, why not?
Fred, Washington's defense on paper will improve its top 5 finishing ranking from a season ago going into next season. Upvote or downvote?
Chip, did you just ask me that in the court of law? At the end of the day, yes, they got better. Keim just told you they added a top flight corner to it. They're going to get faster and younger on the 2nd level. And guess what? Chase Young and Montez Sweat were still babies last year. And they had no offseason together. Offseason put with better talent, put with a more family atmosphere. Oh, yes, they in the top 5 for the next decade. Yeah, I said it.
Hot takes, keep them coming. We love them. As we get ready for OTAs, once the draft concludes, what is your focus going into organized team activities, which are voluntary? Ron Rivera made that very clear going into that.
Well, for me, I just want all the guys to whatever they do, let's do it as a whole team. You know, I just think that that's the thing people don't understand sometimes. When Coach Gibbs had all the guys when the year they ended up winning the Super Bowl, when they had the strike, he told them, whatever you do, stick together. And when those guys came back, they were all together. You know, even the guys and staff players that came in, they were together. I want everybody, whatever they decide to do it together. If they do that, we saw Ron brought that type of mindset in last year and how those guys began to play. If they can come in and start off together this year, they can make some amazing moves.
You know, it's funny, B. Mitch, it's funny that you say that, because with the start of the OTAs, it's obviously very voluntary, and they are allowing guys to come in and do that. But I had the same thought as you. I thought about that Gibbs anecdote, because I do remember that, and you know that can be important. I think as long as guys don't get upset with others who are showing up or not showing up, and realize that this is such an unusual time. So, but you know, that I think that's a good point. My focus will be, it's always going to be on the quarterback, and just to see the impact of Fitzpatrick. Plus, if they draft a guy in day 2, who is it? How do they look, etc. So I'm really curious to see that entire offense, you know, how it comes together and where they move, how they use Curtis Samuel and where they lining him up, even in the spring and things like that. I think that's going to tell us a lot about how that offense can go. But it will start with quarterback. How does Fitzpatrick look? What's the impact on teammates? And how does the new guy look if they bring in another guy?
Am I the only person on this panel that this feel a lot? It feels Tampa Bay-ish in this room now. You know, I'm not saying Fitzmagic is Tom Brady, but I'm saying he brings that veteran bravado to the team. I'm not saying Curtis Samuel is Antonio Brown, but he brings that versatile wide receiver to the room. I'm not saying this is Tampa's defense, but they do kind of compare to each other, especially when you add the young draftees to the pick. All I'm saying is they are setting a standard here, and it's only going to get better. Let's not forget, last year was Coach's first year, and he did that with 3 different quarterbacks. I just want to see the team settle in, and the people that's going to play actually show up for 17 games.
Fred, I love what you're saying, but no, he's not Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has too many awards. He must put him in that category. Yes, he's a guy who's going to take the risk. But he doesn't have the success that a Tom Brady had. What
if I told you he's in the top 3 in passing percentage in the last 3 years? He's one of those veterans where he's getting better at the later parts of his career. He's calming down a little bit and not turning the ball over as much as he did. So, you know, like I said, I'm not saying he Tom. I'm not saying he a runway model. But you know what? I still date him.
Yeah, I'm writing a story for ESPN saying Fred Smoot compares Fitzpatrick to Tom Brady. So I don't know. I don't know. But
joining the zeitgeist.
I will break the internet.
But I will say with Fitzpatrick, just like when Alex Smith was here, the impact he had on other guys around him, and I think that's what it'll be curious to see with Fitzpatrick, how that manifests itself as far as who's spreading the ball around, etc. The thing, though, that I want to watch with him during the season is red zone, because that's where, when he still has issues with the picks, it's been in the red zone. Everywhere else, he's really kind of helped himself a lot. But that's where I'm going to see how much better is he there. Is he forcing things there? Because you have a defensive-minded head coach. I mean, no coach likes turnovers in the red zone, but former linebackers in particular aren't fond of that. But I want to see the impact on others.
And something to keep an eye on, too. The last time Ron Rivera was 7-9 moving into the next season, they almost went undefeated and made it to the Super Bowl. So I know the comparison is hard, but a lot of fans are going to make it. Just like we said, 2 to 3 wins. That wins the division, I think a lot of us can agree on for the NFC East.
So just to be clear, we're now comparing them to 2 teams that made the Super Bowl.
Correct.
Carolina
We're not
Tampa
doing
Bay.
that. No, we're just saying that fans like to make that connection, and we're saying don't. This is a different.
And then B. Mitch says, hey, if they just together like in '87, that's another Super Bowl.
There you go.
Y'all acting like Tampa Bay was not 8-8 with Jameis Winston before Tom came in. They was an 8-8 team that didn't even make the playoffs. We got a team that got to taste the playoff last year under uncomfortable situations. Make that situation a lot more comfortable. Bring in a lot more talent. Sky's the limit.
Well, the other thing along with that, what we haven't mentioned too is this is a young team. That experience last year was invaluable, but you have to take into account. You figure that there's still going to be growth because they are still pretty young.
Yeah, it's going to be a great season. All of us are excited post-draft night. But before we get you all out of here, bold predictions for draft night. We'll go B. Mitch, Fred, and John.
Well, I would say this. Justin Fields has been knocked, and they've been saying he's going to slip in the draft. I think Justin Fields is the third quarterback pick. Probably should be the second.
I think Kyle Pitts is the highest non-quarterback taken and the highest tight end taken in the last 2 decades. So how about that?
If somebody trades in the top 10, it's to take Kyle Pitts, not a quarterback. Because that guy, I think, when you talk to people in the league, the guy that they really kind of light up talking about is Kyle Pitts, because he's more of a transformational player right now than anybody else. He's such a matchup nightmare, and it could be at number 4 to Atlanta, where, like Fred, where you were saying. And I'd be curious to see what, would a team like Dallas move up from 10 to go get him? Because I think if you're a team like Washington, which anybody would like to have, but the hope would have to be if all those quarterbacks, if Justin Fields goes 3 and someone and Mac Jones or Lance go 4 and 5, you're pushing Pitts down toward the bottom end of the top 10, which is shocking that might be, but that's a scenario that maybe develops. But short of that, going 4 and someone will trade up to get him.
He gets the last word after getting the first word on the show. Thank you to our panel for joining us. How about that? Thank you to our panel for joining us on this special edition of Washington Football's Unfiltered Show, The Beat. John Keim of ESPN covering the Washington football team beat. You can also listen to him on his podcast, the John Keim Podcast. We have Fred Smoot, Washington football team's former cornerback back in the day and mouth of the South, and he came strong with a spicy breath today. And Brian Mitchell, host of B. Mitch and Finley on 106.7 The Fan, and in my eyes, a Hall of Famer. NFL voters, make it happen. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you again once the season gets close to starting. Enjoy the draft, everybody, and go Washington football team.
John Keim is a Martian also.
There's no better place to bet the NBA than on FanDuel Sportsbook. Bet every game, all season long, with live betting from tip-off right through the final whistle. Want even more action? Try a same-game parlay. And after that final, get your winnings in as little as 24 hours. Place your first bet risk-free and get up to $1,000 back if you don't win. FanDuel Sportsbook, more ways to win.
The modern world is a digital world. At home, at work, or on the go. We rely on data every day. Losing it can result in lost family photos, lost business, or even a lost job. Want to avoid these problems? You need cyber protection, where backup and cybersecurity meet. Only Acronis offers backup solutions that also stop ransomware before your files are damaged. It's easy, efficient, and secure cyber protection for all your data. Try Acronis free for 30 days. Go to acronis.com today for modern cyber protection.